higher, higher. Don't be alarmed, friends on Facebook. I'm Marcy Knox, and I'm the reader for today. The theme for 2023 is Living Out Loud. The theme for February is Curiosity as a Superpower. The topic for today is Inquiring Minds Want to Flow. Our first inspiring passage is by Ernest Holmes. It seems that man exists for the purpose of self-expression. There appears to be no other reason or excuse for his being. The infinite has already implanted within man an instinctive intuition, which is the spiritual knowledge of good, and his whole growth results from an inner awakening. Our next inspired passage is by Deepak Chopra. Everyone has a purpose in life, a unique gift or special talent to give to others. And when we blend this unique talent with service to others, we experience the ecstasy and exaltation of our own spirit. Let's mindfully affirm together. I am expressing my divine calling right here and right now. And now I bring back to you Reverend Kathleen.
Thank you, Marcy. Ah, yes. Just taking a moment to connect with all of you. Curiosity is a superpower. Love it. And inquiring minds want to flow. So again, let's contemplate what motivated Einstein to work as diligently as he did to discover the theory of relativity. What do you think? Yes, he said, I have no special talent. I am only passionately curious. So curiosity then, the superpower called curiosity, is that which, the moment that we're curious and in a state of wonder, it draws us below the sometimes scary realm of the world of effects, which, is our physical existence, deep down into the center and core of our being, into the silence. And so what that does then is it opens us, it's like going into a portal, into a field of unlimited potentiality and possibility, where this is the realm of the spirit, where our divine nature is coming into the fore. And then in that place, as we are curious, as we pose our questions in the depth of that place, then the answers are always there to guide us. That continued practice through meditation, through visioning, of taking that deep dive within is what allows us then to live from that place of inner guidance. Below the surface, we discover the qualities of the divine: peace, joy, wisdom, love, harmony, because it's inherent in our being. So practicing curiosity, and it can just be something like, I wonder, is the use of the power of our intention. Remember, we are these amazing spirit beings. The power of our intention, attention, to move us from feeling stuck to inviting inspiration and moving forward with our lives. So today, we're focusing on what is my life purpose? It's a question that curious minds want to know in order to flow. And this is a question not from the intellect, or not to the intellect. It is a question to the soul, to the spirit within. So we take the deep dive, the journey within of self-discovery to find that which makes us come alive, to find that which reveals our unique gifts and talents to share with the world. And so it is important to continue to remind ourselves over and over and over again that this amazing experience and expression of life that we are is divine, is unlimited, is a microcosm of the macrocosm, made in the likeness and image of that one in this human expression, having a spiritual experience. So today, in order to delve more deeply into this topic, I wanted to look at your unique purpose, community purpose, and then don't let fear win. So I'd like to start with a quote by Ernest Holmes. He puts things so beautifully. He said, there is a greater mind, and he uses a capital M for mind, meaning the mind of God. There's a greater mind within each which may be called upon, and there is nothing too small or too great for this mind. He says, listen, be receptive, believe absolutely, be convinced. The one with great purpose in life is always causing an outpouring of divine wisdom through his or her own individual mind. So, one with great purpose, it's again opening the floodgates. When we have that great purpose, it allows that flow, that continued flow of divine inspiration and divine guidance to stay in the flow, and that's that feeling of being in the flow. So the answers to those questions then, those deep questions like what is my life purpose, lie within us. And the within us is so much more magnificent than we can ever imagine. We're drawing upon the greater mind, we're discovering our divine calling, and we're waiting, our divine calling, which, by the way, is waiting for us to access it and to express it, bring it into full expression in our lives. And here's the thing, when it comes forward, when we are open and receptive to our divine calling, when it does come forward into our awareness, and even like hints of it, the gifts that support it, even when we don't think we have those gifts, come forward. Anybody experience that? Things that you might not have even realized that you had, gifts that you had, and talents and abilities come forward into being. And one of the greatest feelings of being aligned with this calling is that we get that sense of I am in the flow. I'm in the flow. So this is actually from one of my colleagues. When we find our glow, we are in the flow. And I'm going to add to that, and inspiring others. So let me illustrate. You know, it's Super Bowl Sunday, so I decided to look for, right. So I decided to look for a football story, an inspiring football story. And this is what I came across. There's a football team called the Cubs football team. It's a varsity football team from the California School for the Deaf. And it's made up of a group of individuals, each who have unique talents and abilities. And in addition to that, which includes using American Sign Language to communicate on and off the field. Now keep in mind, this team plays regular high schools where people can communicate with speech and hearing. And yet, and so actually for their 68-year history, they were always the underdogs. And, did okay, but, not what they thought they could. Well, something changed, and I'm going to guess that they got in touch with their divine calling, and they all got motivated with a common purpose. But whatever it was, everything changed in 2021 for this team. They had an undefeated season in their division, 11-0. They played 11 other teams and won every single one of the games. And then it came time to go for the state championship, and they lost. Well, that did not deter them. They decided if they can have an undefeated season, then they can put in the extra work. And so they what I understand is they worked out in the gym a little bit more to build their muscles. And who else what else they did? But there was a great common purpose in mind for this team. So not only in 2022 did they go undefeated, 11-0 in their division, but they met the same team that they played in 2021. And they not only defeated them, the score was 80-26. I love stories like this because it lets me know that all things are possible. It reminds me, I say this all the time, but every time I hear an inspiring story like this, it reminds me that all things are possible when we are focused on our purpose, when we do what we need to do in order to fulfill that purpose. So each and every one of those members had to pull their weight in order for that team to have victory. The quarterback credits the team's success for the amazing chemistry between the players. And the coach reflected that the community morale and the self-esteem of the players was uplifted. He said, "You can see it made a major difference." And one of the linebackers said that deaf people can do anything. The players hope their success will encourage more deaf students to pursue their passion. And, it goes beyond that. It's not just the deaf community. It actually opens all of our eyes to possibilities for everyone and helps us to remember we're all included in this one field of divine presence. And we're all expressions of that divine presence with all these amazing gifts and talents and possibilities. But it inspires us and it reminds us, it's a reminder to me that all things are possible. That all things are possible. And it doesn't matter what our background is. It doesn't matter what has happened up to this point. There is something within each and every one of us that is letting us know what our purpose is and is asking us to align with it, to do what's necessary to align with that purpose. So it can look like seeming miracles, and yet we know with our teachings, our Science of Mind teachings, that there is inspiration of the spirit essence, but there is divine law. There is divine law, and which means a law of cause and effect. What we place into it in consciousness is outpictured. And so that's why it is so important for us, once we discover our calling, to stay focused on that calling and to continue to go within and listen. And then also to remember to align it with being in service to the greater good. So I'm going to move on now to, that was the unique purpose, community purpose. So this team, I think, also demonstrated community purpose. When people work together, they fulfill something even greater. And when community gets together to fulfill a higher purpose, amazing things begin to happen. We've had that experience with this spiritual community over the years. So our spiritual community does have a divine calling. Everyone who is part of this collective has a divine calling. A divine calling that's uniquely yours, and a divine calling as being part of the collective. And what we have used over the years is something called the visioning process. For those of you who have been here for quite a while, you know what I'm talking about. For those who are new, the visioning process is one of our key spiritual practices, just as affirmative prayer, that we also call spiritual mind treatment, and just as meditation. These are like the three pillars of our teaching. And the visioning process, I love the visioning process because it calls us to take that deep dive within, and rather than to visualize, which has its purpose, we are instead contemplating. We are, with minds of curiosity, we're using our superpower of curiosity, diving below the surface into the depth of our own being, into that field of all possibility, and asking very powerful questions, like, what is the highest idea of Center for Spiritual Living, Delaware? What does it look like, feel like, sound like? And so on. We have other questions too that I'll deal with later. But these powerful questions, asked with curiosity, give amazing answers. And sometimes things we think, oh my gosh, we're being asked to do that? And so we have this amazing vision statement that has come out of it, that has continued to pull us forward. We have the intention statement that we read every day that's part of our service, or every Sunday as part of our service. We have values that common shared values in the community that have come out of the visioning process. We have a mission statement that's come out of the visioning process. And in addition to that, our goals and our strategic plan come out of the visioning process. We're continually looking at the results of it and letting it inform us as to how to move forward in our spiritual community. Usually our board does this, and we now have a vision core of 5 members that meet monthly to open our hearts and minds and receive the impress of this vision. So we've done that now for about a year. And we also are now including all of the Spark leadership, the staff, the practitioners, the team leaders, the 2 boards, and we're going to be doing that today after service in the Orange Room. We're going to be looking at the visioning results so far. And of course, the visioning results will be summarized into major themes that seem to be showing up. And then we'll be deciding together 3 goals for 2023. This is the second year that we've involved the entire Spark leadership to engage the spirit of collaboration and common purpose. And then the Board of Trustees will come up with a strategic plan based on those three goals. So when divine humans, which we are, work together for a common purpose, we can accomplish seemingly impossible tasks. And that's what's happening right here and right now in Syria and Turkey. I'm sure that you are well aware of what's happening over there right now, what's been going on for the past several days with the earthquakes, the massive earthquakes, and thousands upon thousands of lives that have been lost and many, many others injured. And to me, it was a huge demonstration, or it is a huge demonstration of a common purpose that is alive on our planet. 20 countries are involved in providing relief. Many organizations all over the planet. Countless individuals who've decided to show up and help, who've raced to those earthquake sites and asked the question, how can I serve? Side by side, and this is the really powerful part for me, one of the powerful parts. People who had called themselves enemies are working side by side. How many of you knew that? Yeah. People who were normally enemies, in Syria and so on, have put down their weapons and are working side by side with those who they considered enemies in order to save lives. That, to me, that is so inspiring. So our worldwide community has heard the call of a common purpose. I love what Ram Dass says about this. He said, helping is an act of reverence, worship, and gratitude. It is grace merely to have the chance to serve. Okay, don't let fear win. This is my next thing to focus on. So all too often what happens is we may hear the calling, and then the fears and the hidden beliefs begin to show up and seemingly hijack our attempts to move forward with our purpose. And we may stay disillusioned and stuck until we remember our superpower of curiosity. It's a great way out of it. So as we draw upon curiosity then, and this is the other part of the visioning, we can begin to ask, what must I release in order to be in alignment with this purpose? What must I embrace? And when we listen deeply with reverence to those questions, then we know what our inner work is. Because remember, the purpose and who we are as a divine being are already whole, perfect, and complete. It is just simply removing the layers of belief that stand in the way so that that shining light that we are can come through and show up in this human expression. And when we do that, we receive the inner guidance we need, and then again, it's important for us to follow through with action. So it's not just about knowing what we must release, it's about actually doing the inner work. I have several tools that I use, not only prayer and so on, but in terms of this releasing part. I have used many, many times the Fear to Faith model that's in the Foundations class. I'm happy to share it with anybody. In fact, I'll make sure that it gets in the newsletter this week, the Fear to Faith model. And it is an opportunity to really look at what's going on within and to be able to deal with that and release it. And so, and there's even a prayer that you do for 70 times for 7 days in order to do any of the releasing of the false belief and the ways that we handle it so that we can clear the air, clear the field in order to continue to more fully express our divine purpose. So the fulfillment of life purpose then, our own unique way of expressing, results from inner growth, releasing and letting go of the illusion. So I'd like to illustrate, this is a powerful story, but I have a question for you. Who was it that invented rock and roll?
Elvis Presley.
Oh, you think so, huh? A lot of people say Elvis Presley, he's the king of rock and roll. Chuck Berry is the father of rock and roll. However, there's something that you may not know. And that's the story of somebody by the name of Sister Rosetta Tharpe. Anybody heard of her? Yes. In the 1930s and the 1940s, long before Elvis Presley and Chuck Berry, Sister Rosetta Tharpe followed her passion and her unique talents and her deep sense of purpose and became a groundbreaking, internationally acclaimed electric guitarist and vocalist. This is back in the 1930s and 40s. Electric guitarist and vocalist. Her style was unique and revolutionized music. She started playing at the age of 4. Why? Because her mother was very talented musically and played guitar and sang. And so from a very young age, she and her mother did music tours and concerts all over the country. She started very young, and she was considered a child prodigy. I mean, her talent was so extraordinary. At age 23, her first single was called Rock Me. Anybody know that song? It'd be fun to kind of go to YouTube and investigate some of these songs. Her other hits, That's All. That one I definitely know. Lonesome Road, Down by the Riverside, This Train. These are all some of her many, many hits. So if you can imagine, in a floral print dress, she kick-started rock and roll, playing, listen to this, guitar hooks and boogie blues rhythms that Chuck Berry would eventually employ. You wondered where all that originated? Sister Rosetta. So many music legends, including Elvis Presley, Little Richard, Johnny Cash, Chuck Berry, and Jimi Hendrix, claim that they were inspired by Sister Rosetta's unique style. And I did listen to some of her, music online, and yep, there's rock and roll back in the there it was back in the 1930s and 40s, the precursor of rock and roll. And despite the profound impact, though, that she had on all of these great legends, she did not receive the acknowledgement for what she contributed for many, many years. Many years. In fact, after she had already made her transition in 2007, a biography was written. It was called Shout, Sister Shout, The Untold Story of Rock and Roll Trailblazer, Sister Rosetta Tarp. And so finally, on April 12th, and it took another, almost more than 10 years, 11 years, April 12th, 2018, nearly 40 years after she passed, she was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame and acknowledged as the grandmother of rock and roll, the original soul sister. Isn't that awesome? And she did not let fear win. If you can imagine, and I think you've probably heard other stories, being a woman of color back in those times, the 1930s and the 1940s, was you meet with prejudice, you meet with mistreatment, and all of the other things that I'm aware of, and probably things I'm not even aware of. And she had some white band members that protected her and made sure that she got meals when she was not allowed to go in restaurants and things like that. But she did not let fear win. Her performances, in fact, were so brilliant that no one would have ever known what was going on in the background. She was so centered in her purpose. And at the end of her performances, she would often say, "Pretty good for a woman, ain't I?" So every one of us has a life purpose. We all have unique gifts and talents to give to others. And there is no one else that can offer what you offer. We blend this unique talent with service to others. And when we do, we experience ecstasy and exultation beyond our imagination. So I'd like us to turn within in prayer. And I'm just so grateful to know that God is so, so amazingly gracious. So grateful to know that we live and move and have our being in this field of all possibility and all potentiality, and that it's centered right in the core of our own being, as the divine nature of our own being. That field of infinite possibility and infinite potentiality out of which We receive all the answers we could ever desire when we use our superpower of curiosity, when we listen reverently, when we allow the answers to come to the surface. I'm also knowing that as we share our unique calling, that we also call forth many unique gifts and talents that we didn't even know were present within us. Unique to, and also not only unique, but supporting that purpose and that calling. So I am just so grateful to know that each and every one of us are those unlimited beings of unlimited possibility, that we are rooted always and grounded in the one source, and that we have all that is necessary in order to live our lives fully for our own benefit and for the benefit of others. Aligning with service to others, that service consciousness. We are an inspiration. We are a demonstration that the divine really truly exists in us and on this planet. And when we draw together with others for common purpose, amazing things can happen. And so I'm knowing right here and right now there is a grand awakening in this spiritual community and all across the planet to this higher purpose of being on this planet at this time. I'm so grateful for this awakening. I'm so grateful for what it produces. More enlightened leaders, more enlightened members of countries that vote in enlightened leaders, greater harmony and peace on the planet. And so it is with great joy and thanksgiving that I release this word into the universal law of mind, that law of cause and effect that acts upon our word and brings it into manifestation. I breathe. I relax. I give thanks. Give thanks for this good. And I release it into the universal law of mind, knowing it is done, it is fulfilled. I've done my part. I'm standing in my faith. And I invite us all to say together, yes, and so it is. Thank you so much, everyone.